Good afternoon, class. My name is Pedro, and today we will be learning about two-step equations. Now, before we proceed, let's define what a variable is. Do any of you know what a variable is?
It's a letter.
Yes, that's partially correct. So a variable is any symbol, usually is represented by an x or a y in an equation that represents an unknown number that will make an equation true. Now, for example, we could have 3x equals 3. Now, you might have forgotten what the variable next to a number means. Pretty much that means 3 times x will equal 3. So in this equation, pretty much x represents any number that will make this equation valid. Do any of you know what number will make that equation true?
1.
1? So that's true. 3 times 1 does indeed equal 3. Alright, so now that we've reviewed that, let's move on to the equations that we have on the board over here. Alright, so normally these equations you will have one variable on one side and a whole bunch of numbers. So the trick here is to isolate the variable. So one thing I like to do is I like to draw one line where the equal sign is, and it helps me visualize. So what I want to do is isolate the variable on this side and put all the numbers and everything else on that side. Now, in order to do that, you're going to want to do the opposite operation for the numbers to both sides. So what you do to one side, you have to do to the other side, so you can keep the value for the x a constant number. If you were to say not do it to both sides, you would end up getting a different number, and it might make the equation not valid. Alright, so does anyone know how we would proceed with this equation here? Precious?
Subtract 1.
Yep. So you would subtract 1 from both sides, and you would end up getting x equals 1. Now, if you're questioning whether that value is correct, what you would do is pretty much you would plug in the value you got back into the variable you got. So what you would get is 1 plus 1 equals 2, which indeed it is 2 equals 2. Right? So let's move on to a harder equation. Say, sometimes you'll find a number attached to a variable. Now, you want to treat this equation as you did with the simpler one. Again, draw the line to make it easier for you guys. And what you want to do is you want to isolate the variable. So, Ricard, what would you do in this equation?
I know I can't divide by the 3, so I would first add 2 on both sides.
Correct. Right. 2 on both sides, so that would give us
8.
Yes. So 3x equals 8. Tommy, what would you do next?
I would divide both sides by 3.
Yes.
This is the opposite operation of multiplication.
Correct. Alright, so divide by 3, and then you would end up getting x equals 8/3. And again, if you wanted to make sure that if that number was the correct number for this equation, you would just, again, plug that in and solve to make sure that this side equals to this side. Alright, now let's move on to a more difficult equation. X divided by 2 equals 2, so a variable divided by a number. It may seem harder at first, but it's pretty simple once you get the handle on it. So does anyone know what you would do in this certain situation?
Multiply both sides by 2?
Yes. So in multiplying both sides by 2, you would cancel these out, and then you would multiply that, so it would be x equals 2 times 2, which is
4.
Yes, correct. 4. Now again, what you can do to make sure that's the right number is you can plug this number in for x. So it would be 4 divided by 2 equals 2, and 4 divided by 2 equals
2.
Correct. So 2 equals 2, and that's how you know that that equation is indeed valid. Now, if you want to say, let's come up with a saying to help you guys with that. So basically, the main steps of a two-step equation is you want to isolate the variables and then move everything to one side and keep it divided so you can find out the actual value for x or y that will make the equation true. So one saying that we have over here on the board is what you do to one side, you do to the other. Now that's very important. So you should always memorize that. And to help you memorize that, you can go on further to say, if you give a snack to the sister, you have to give one to the brother. Alright, well thank you guys for attending class, and I will see you tomorrow.